All right, let's move on to Army of Darkness. So, Rebecca Reinhardt has joined my Patreon at the killer tier level, and so she got to request everything I have. That's the tier level that if you get at, it's expensive, but yeah, she gets the perks of literally every single thing I have to offer, which is a series, a Monster Monday / Sunday review, and just a normal review. And she gets a shirt and everything. I mean, she gets literally everything. And her series she wanted was Evil Dead. It was what I wanted to do eventually anyways. I should have done it by now, but hey, it was perfect. She mentioned it and I was like, shit, I haven't done it yet. All right. So in this one, we have yet another retelling of the story of what happened at the cabin here. They have recast Linda as Bridget Fonda. Holy shit, was Bridget Fonda hot back in the day. I don't know what she looks like now, so I don't know how well she's aged or whatnot, so I can't really speak to that matter. But man, Bridget Fonda was hot back in the day. And so we show the footage, which it's really weird because in the second movie, originally, they had to retell whatever. I talked about it in my last review, how it's more of a remake, and people say, no, it's just a retelling of the first bits of events and this and that. I get plenty into that in the last review, so I'm not going to do it here. But so they didn't have the footage. They didn't have the rights to the first film, so they couldn't use it in the second one. But here in the third one, I don't understand. Because initially you would think like, okay, because they kind of changed the story. Because at the end of Evil Dead 2, he goes through the rift, he lands, he's in the 1300s. The people are like, hail, hail. In this one, you want to have him enslaved. You want him to have been taken by these people as opposed to them worshiping him like he's some hero from the sky, as they prophesize. But that's not what happens here. They don't change the story to match up with why they're not trying to alter it to then tell us why they've changed that. No, all they do is they kind of replay what they did, but they cast a different actress. And then, weirdly, they cut in footage from Evil Dead 2 as well, where Ash is being pulled through the rift. And he has the gray hair, which then he doesn't have in this one, so that's kind of odd. But I'm guessing that they didn't want to pay the actress again, or what? I don't know why they changed. As I said, I don't ever go and look behind the scenes before I record these kind of videos. I probably should, but what? Really? That's so weird to me. And just another, like, blatant disregard for continuity. Like, they use clips from the other one. So it's not like they didn't have rights or any of that. But maybe they didn't have the rights to show her. As I said, I'm sure it's an easy Googleable video, but just as the viewer, as someone experiencing the film, it's frustrating. I don't need to go and ask fucking Bruce Campbell or Sam Raimi or whatever why it was done and this and that. Like, I can only take from what I saw on the screen, and it's silly. We even get a different book in this. This is not the Necronomicon like you see behind me that I have. I've displayed it in every video, and I'll keep displaying this beauty. The book looks completely different in this movie, so I don't get it. It's so weird to me. But yeah, let's just talk about how hot Bridget Fonda is for a minute. No, okay, we already did that. All right, moving on. Danny Elfman's music in this is awesome. I mean, the music in the first two, I honestly don't even remember it. It's not memorable to me in the slightest. So the music in this one is kick-ass. I'm like drawing a blank on what the music's even like in the first two. Is it even memorable? I don't know. Is there even any music in it? I know there is, but it's just, doesn't really do anything for me. It's just like that piano, right? That's what it is? Yeah, it's like that, old-time piano stuff. This music's great. But much more action horror. This doesn't have the feeling of the first two movies in the slightest. These movies are all so damn different from each other. All right, so Ash is being enslaved or kidnapped or whatever. He calls himself a slave if I remember correctly, in the opening. He's like, Ash, I'm a slave. Like, does he do any slave type stuff? He's more of a prisoner, right? They imprison him and they march him to the castle, and then they're gonna throw him in the pit. I swear he says he's a slave in the opening. Does he do any slavey type things? Interesting, right? Okay, I was just thinking about it. It just hit me right now when I was thinking about it. I was like, I swear he called himself a slave. It's been a little while since I watched it. I did watch the theatrical edition. I haven't seen the bootleg edition in a long time. I remember the alternate ending, and I remembered some of the more goofy, slapsticky, even more slapsticky than this movie already is. Him like running on the water or oil or whatever and slipping and then falling and spinning, and it's fine. It's kind of charming and silly and whatnot, but I much prefer this, and I much prefer the ending of the theatrical version over the I slept too long or whatever. Not a big fan. But yeah, so they come in with Henry the Red's men, and they're there, and you're in charge of Jack shit, and Jack just split town or whatever. Those lines are great. This is Ash at his ashiest. He has not used any lotion. He is at his full on ashiness here. And this is where we get all the lines. If you're quoting Ash lines, 99% of the time you're going to be quoting them from Army of Darkness. It's just, yeah, this is Ash doing his Ash. Like, this is, yeah. All right. Those are stupid comparisons. And we meet Sheila here. Oh, man, Sheila is hot. She is Miss Honey from Matilda. God, she's a good-looking woman. Production value on this is even higher than the last one, so they just kind of exponentially keep going up from there. The pit, I love that the blood is just completely fully on display here. This one just doesn't feel anywhere near as rated R is the problem with this movie. That's the only real problem I have with this film, is with the budget and everything. This movie should have been fucking graphic and gory as all hell, and it really isn't. Like, I feel like this could be PG-13. I don't really feel like there's almost anything in this to make it R-rated. That's a shame. Outside of some blood that sprays out, he says fuck, which is weird because you never hear Ash say fuck for some reason. He's like, yeah, get the fuck out of my face. He says that. I think that's the only fuck he says in the movie. And if I want to say that might be the only one uttered. So, hey, PG-13 can have one fuck. There you go. Yeah, I mean, is it rated R? I just don't see the R rating in this movie. Even when he creates Bad Ash, and they're having their little fight, and goody little two shoes. Like, I can definitely see why people don't like this movie. So the people who don't, I really enjoy this movie. I don't like it as much as Evil Dead 2. That's the best Evil Dead film for me. It just has the perfect blend of comedy and horror. This one actually takes the comedy a little too far at times. I wish they would have grounded this more in horror. There should have been more horror going on in here. More deadites, more blood, more gore. With the budget, they could definitely have done it. So it's a shame that there's really none to be displayed. Because as I said, when he's fighting good or bad Ash, and good Ash puts a gun to his face, and he pulls the trigger, and he has his whole, good, bad, I'm the one with the gun, whatever. His head should have blown off. It's just lightly burnt around the mouth. Okay, it's not lightly, but it's not all that. If I put a shotgun to your head, he puts it to his fucking face and pulls the trigger. Even if there was bird shot in there, it would destroy your face. Your head would probably explode, especially with the shots that he's doing. Although he seems to be able to aim his shotgun with precision. I don't think that they even try to acknowledge that a shotgun spreads. It's a spread shot. So the further away you are, the more range it has. The more circumference it can take in. But he always shoots something, and it's very much pinpointed. So of course it's just a movie. It's silly, but I don't know. I feel like if you put a shotgun to someone's head in a movie like this, when you get so much gore in the first one, when you get so much gore in the second one, that the same director is here, where's the fucking gore in this film? They were doing it for more of a bigger audience. This is supposed to appeal? I'm guessing that's what happened, right? They're trying to appeal to a larger audience. Mistake. That's a fucking mistake. This movie isn't for a larger audience. This movie is for Evil Dead fans. This is the movie that people waited for after Evil Dead 2 when it was promised with the whole nights and everything. Then you completely ignore the way you set that up, reshoot things, and then give us this. I'm not complaining because I really do enjoy this film, but it's not good. It's not as good as it should be. That's for damn sure when it comes to the things they could have added to it. But the comedy is strong enough. Ash is strong enough. The special effects and all that stuff are cool. So I'll forgive it, but it could have been even better. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at. Ash turns into freaking Indiana Jones or some kind of a superhero in this, full on. He like takes his belt and he whips it like he's Indiana Jones, and it like completely ties. It's silly. It's zany as the first one, but even more so. And he shoots a sword with the shotgun. As I said, he's like precision shooting in this movie. Somehow he climbs himself out of this pit. How he could possibly do that with one arm is beyond me. But as I said, you can't really overthink these things. He shows them the boomstick. I love that shot where it's like the camera is almost attached to his hand and he's showing it to the peasants. This is my boomstick, and he throws it in their face, and there's all their reactions. Raimi's always been very creative with his style there. And Ash is a little more crude in this one. I mean, when Lisa comes up to him and is trying to talk to him, he's like, first you want to kill me, now you want to whatever, and he's like, blow. Blow? Really? Like, just fucking suck my dick? Blow? Wow. I don't know. I don't really care for that, honestly. It just paints Ash in a negative light for me. I don't know. I guess I'm being silly there, but it just doesn't feel like Ash. That just doesn't feel like Ash. Yes, he's into the ladies and this and that, but I don't know. The way he talks to her there, not into it. Although the line later when he's talking to her and she brings him the blanket, he's like, I needed a horse blanket. That feels like Ash. He's a sarcastic prick. I love that about him in this. But yeah, I don't know. And then we got the freaking wizard, I guess. He's like Gandalf in this movie. So he gives Ash his lines there, the Klaatu, Veratu, Nikto lines, and then he goes to the graveyard. I love that scene. That's one of the best scenes. That's one of those quotable scenes when he's trying to remember that last word there. It's an N, and he keeps saying it's an N word. I was like, ooh, don't say that. What? No. No one says the N word. And yeah, another moment. Like, he has that fight with the witch. Shoots her 4 fucking times. 4 in this movie. He puts it over the shoulder. He does this, blah, blah, blah. Shoots her 4 fucking times. Not a mark. Not a mark on her. She just falls over. I feel like I'm watching some television series in the 90s or the 80s. Like, it's like the fucking A-Team or something. When people get shot, they just fall over. There's no blood, there's no mark, there's no nothing. That's bullshit. In a movie like this, coming off of the last 2 films, when he shoots the witch, an arm should rip off. A head should blow off. A chest should explode. A leg should have fucking just obliterate, incinerate. Doesn't. Why? I don't get that. That's just fucking crazy to me. I don't care what the company said. That's frustrating. You get the little mini Ashes. So this is much more goofy than the last one. And the last one, I get it. It's goofy, but this one's even more. Ash gets his face stuck to a grill, has to grab a thing and pull his face up and off. Not a single mark on his face. His face is still perfect. Don't want to take away from those boyish good looks. And yeah, sticking burning water into your mouth. Could you imagine like actually trying to swallow burning hot water like that? He wouldn't even be able to talk. His tongue would be so swollen. I know I'm bringing too much logic into a fucking movie like this. Don't get me wrong. I'm being silly here, but I just have to bring it up. And the 3 books that are sitting up there, he gets sucked into one and he has like the elongated face. Hey, why the long face? Ha ha ha. And then he just shakes it off and all that. And then he opens up the next one. He puts his hand and it bites him. Kind of reminded me of freaking the book in Harry Potter, the monster book. I thought for a second when his hand got bit by the book, I was like, oh shit, is his other hand going to get possessed? Oh man, then Ash would have no hands. He'd have to have chainsaws on both arms. And then he takes the thing, he tries to cough, and then he hears the rumbling, and he's like, I guess that means it's good, and he takes it. That's great stuff. That's so well played by Bruce Campbell. I feel like if Bruce Campbell didn't give the performance that he does in this movie wouldn't be great. Like it does blend a lot of cool elements to it. Like it has fantasy and it has knights and it has all this stuff. I really dig that kind of stuff. That's totally my wheelhouse. But it's all Ash. I feel like Ash really just makes this movie. I also forgot to mention that when I was like 19, I dated a girl for a few years, and her mother was actually, this is the perks of growing up in Hollywood. I mean, I grew up in LA. So everyone or everyone who knows somebody that was involved in something. But she was the body cast for some of the Deadites in this movie because she's super, super skinny. She had pictures that she was that kind of woman who she had no clue what fucking movies were. Like nothing. She was in them, she would play these bit little roles, or she would do body casts or whatever. She's usually an extra, but because she was so thin, they casted her body and used it as some of the Deadites in this. But you would talk to her and she wouldn't have a fucking clue about anything. She would be on movie sets and she said, who did she talk to? She told me this story and she said she sat down and she talked to somebody. I want to say it was John Travolta it was Tom Hanks. I think it was Tom Hanks. And she was sitting there, she talked to him for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and she had no fucking clue who he was at all. And then when the conversation was over, he was like, you have no idea who I am, do you? And she was like, no, who are you? And he told her his name. She's like, I think I've heard of you. Yeah, your name kind of sounds familiar. And he was just so bemused by this, like, oh my God, like it must have been so nice for him, like to be like, oh my God, I am like a normal person again. Because being that famous must be awful, just to go everywhere and every single person you meet knows you and has preconceived ideas of who they think you are from whatever tabloids or whatever rumors or whatever bullshit. Anyway, I just had to talk about it because that was my connection to this movie. Very small, teeny connection. I'm sure someone will say it's a fucking lie. I don't know why I'd make something up like that, but there you go. People accuse me of that shit all the time. So stupid. And then, yeah, I mean, if Ash would have just said the words right, then I guess none of this would have happened, right? He would have just grabbed the book. He would have brought it back to them. Maybe they would have devastated themselves. With great power comes great responsibility, or freaking absolute power corrupts absolute, or whatever the fucking line is. But yeah, like, why they didn't send somebody with him when the words were so important? Why didn't the wizard go with him? I don't get it. He just went out to the graveyard. Wasn't really that big of a deal to get there. I mean, yes, he ran into this windmill that he didn't really have to stop at, and he made a bunch of different copies of himself and on the ground, whatever. But he could have just rode straight to the graveyard. The guy, why didn't he go get it himself? Like, Ash had to go get it. Okay, so go with Ash. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. If it's that important, if you don't say the words, write it down on a fucking piece of paper for him. I don't know if they seem to have paper. Ash could have fucking wrote it down. He has his textbooks in the back of his car. If it's that important, of course I'm applying logic to a silly movie. I get it, but it's so silly. It's bad writing, in my opinion. To not have writing, it's bad writing. I don't get it. And then, yeah, of course, Ash being Ash, he coughs the words. Of the hands coming out of the ground and poking him in the eyes and all that. That's where it gets very Three Stooges. And then what? Sometimes I write notes and I'm so confused on what the fuck I'm even. Then Ash comes back and he just is like, this is the deal. This is what the deal was. And everyone's like ashamed of him and he feels bad, which he should. He fucked them over. But he does stick around, so that's cool. And Sheila gets taken. We almost see tits in this movie. We see a couple girls, like her back's to him, and then this girl's coming with hair in front of her boobs. Like, yet again, R-rated movie. Why no tits? I don't get it. You're not even going to give me tits. And then there's the scene where Ash does the whole speech and he's trying to figure out, you know, who's going to be with him in this. And then you kind of have the Fellowship of the Ring moment here where people are like, you have my sword and my axe and my bow. They don't say that per se, but it feels like that moment. And then the bad Ash, the evil Deadite here, who is not Bill Moseley, Deadite captain or whatever. He plays a different character in this movie. He goes, who rules? And I just expected all of them to yell O'Doyle when they put their arms up, but they did not. I just thought it was funny. It's one of those, like, who are you going to call lines in a movie when as soon as you say who rules, O'Doyle rules is going to be immediately what comes to mind if you grew up around the same time as me. And hey, good thing Ash never cleared out his trunk since he fucking got the thing. He has so much shit in there. Ash is teaching swordsmen and knights of a castle how to fight. That scene, no sense. The king of that castle, who's this like expert swordsman and everything, he's not like, these guys are already all trained knights, most of them. Why wouldn't they be trained? Ash just teaches them a couple little moves. I guess he just talked them into it. Like, you have no idea, man. From where I come from, I'm the best fighter around. He's teaching them stupid two-thrust moves. And it's like, pretty sure they know that stuff and plenty more. So Ash teaching them is a really dumb scene, in my opinion. It just doesn't make any sense to the characters. It actually makes them look stupid. It's just like, really? These guys can't fight? Like, that, they should have been like, well, don't worry about us. We can hold our own in a fight. So we should never even have questioned the fact that they could fight. This is what they do. They all have swords. They all are fucking knights. I don't get that. Makes no sense. They upgrade his car, which is kind of fun. Good thing the axle and all that didn't break when it fell down, but I guess they pulled the engine out and repaired an axle. I guess they had all the parts. There was a freaking auto zone right up the little walkway there. And yeah, he's driving. He can't run over Sheila. Of course, they do that in every fucking movie ever made. Somebody walks out of the road and they're like, I can't do it. And they turn the car and crash it. I want to see a movie once where they just say fucking run him over anyway. And then they're like, God, I can't believe that didn't work on him. Ash is a total sword fighter now. He grabs 2 swords and is fighting these Deadites here. I guess one of them is just himself, so he'd only be as good as himself. I don't know. And then the skull guy, the Deadite captain, when he becomes just a skeleton, he falls on the catapult, and then he has the moment where Ash cuts off his hand and he flings him and he blows up, but he right before that his head comes off and he blows like a freaking train whistle or something. That is silly. And then the freaking the 2 sides hug it out, and Ash is returned. He could have stayed with his girl, but he's like, no, I'm going back and I'm working at S-Mart again. And he's telling this story to try to get laid. And then a Deadite, I guess, has followed him to S-Mart. And for some reason, he gets up on something and he throws the gun in front of himself to then jump onto this cart that slides forward, and then he grabs the gun out of the air and then fires it into this thing 50 fucking times. Not one single mark is on this thing at all. No blood, no nothing. Ugh, so lame. Why does he throw the gun? It's a cool scene, don't get me wrong, and it looks fun and whatever, and that's the reason, but no reason? He just throws the gun to look cool? It's like spinning it or something? It's stupid. Even the fucking thing hits a trampoline and flies back. It's so over the top. And then he has his closing line here, "Hail to the king, baby," which is the name of the first Evil Dead video game on PlayStation 1, which I have somewhere around here. What a bad game that was. Back in the day, it was pretty rough. Now I couldn't even imagine trying to play that thing. The controls are so broken. But it was cool. They redid the whole cabin and everything. So it was fun revisiting the original trilogy. I had a good time. So I rewatched the remake. So let's get to it.